Hello, beautifuls. I'm going to try recording this without holding it in front of me today, so slightly different angle. I hope you're doing well. I just finished a lesson with one of my wonderful students, and I'm looking at the iPad right next to my phone here as I'm recording, and there is a tough song that they are working on with their choral group, and it is, I would call it atonal. Very difficult to read. So we talked about some practicing strategies for this sort of music specifically, and I wanted to share some of those with you. So the first thing that I recommend when doing something like this is trying to read it by interval, not trying to listen to where your ear thinks it's going to go, because your ear is probably lying to you. The composer probably has something more squishy and interesting to do. So what you want to do, I'm going to close my computer here, is read by interval. The interval is the space between two notes. I'm not going to go over this for too long. Most of you know what that is. For instance, this note to this note is called a half step or minor second, and it sounds like Jaws. This note to this note is called a perfect fourth. It sounds like Here Comes the Bride. And you can memorize what intervals sound like by memorizing those little tricks. That's what we did when we were in music school, when I was majoring in music, in opera. So that's one thing. Another is to put the notes close together, a lot closer together than you want. So for instance, if something, like I'll just play a little bit of this piece in front of me. If it's really slow, like this, I'm not kidding. That's tricky to hear, huh? What you want to do is speed up your part, play it by itself, speed it up, and put the notes, squish them right together. Something about that helps your brain process and connect the notes as a group. So I would, if for instance, I was just teaching the soprano one line here, instead of, I would go, and I would have my students sing that over and over. And then we would start to put it together with some of the other notes. It's hard for me to play. There was one other little trick. The other thing that I use to help me read and learn something like this, and my students as well. Sorry, y'all know me. I always got to fix the hair. I'm actually having a decent hair day today. Yay. Is solfege. If there's a sense of key or home base, for example, this particular piece, the home base is sort of like C. I wouldn't call it a key because it strays from that a good bit, but it does keep going back to C as the center. So you can look at this in terms of solfege as well, and having C as the center of your tonal world here, even if you're sprouting off from that a good bit. I hope that makes sense. My brain is a little bit scrambled from doing that, but it's very fun. When I was singing more professionally, I started to kind of get known for being able to read, learn, and memorize this kind of music quickly. So I ended up getting cast in a lot of new music, operas and opera premieres and things like that, things that hadn't been done before, because they knew they could trust me. They knew I had the chops and the skills to learn this kind of music. And it's not the easiest, right? It's not like learning Mozart or something. Not that Mozart is easy, but it's easy to hear tonally, whereas something like this is tricky. Oh, did you hear my voice drop? I swallowed and it went, whoa. So Yeah, it doesn't have to be everyone's cup of tea, but if you're in a choir, you don't really usually have any say in what you're doing, so you may have to learn how to do this sort of thing even if you don't love it. And those are some tips for you. So just reading your part by intervals, marking in the interval between each note, trying to find the tonal center, some semblance of a key, and keep in mind where do would be, and then using solfege as well, and then speeding up your part while you're learning it helps. And then of course, if you have some sort of learning track, even if it's a crappy MIDI track, listening to that and playing your part over that is helpful. So anyway, these are just some things that we went over in my lesson today with this particular student, and I thought they may be helpful to you as well. I'm curious to hear, do you all have any special tricks to learn new music, atonal music, and yeah, what do you think of these things that I suggested? Are they helpful? Would you do it differently? I'd love to hear your thoughts. As always, thank you for being here. Bye.